So, as it's October and Halloween spooky season is almost upon us, this time of year I always go to one of my personal guilty pleasures here on YouTube. Analog horror. For those who are not familiar, analog horror is a genre of online video that uses older styles of video making to tell some kind of horror story. It's been around for quite a while now, and even if you aren't familiar with analog horror overall, you've probably heard of at least one example of it. The Backrooms, Local 58, FNAF VHS, and even far older series like Marble Hornets and No Through Road might all fall into the umbrella of analog horror, and it's gotten so influential that it has directly influenced horror movies like Skinamarink. Now, this might just be my power scaler Dragonball fan brain rot, but one of the first things that come to mind when I see these series is something incredibly simple. What if Goku was in these worlds? Are the monsters, the entities that exist in these horror series actually strong and threatening, or are they only scary because the people in the stories are powerless in comparison to them? Today, let's find out. If you like this kind of stuff, make sure to like, subscribe, and let's jump right in. Now, for this video specifically, I will just be covering the analog series that I am personally familiar with and also for the most part enjoy. If there was an analog horror or just internet horror series you thought I missed out on or would like me to give a power scale for in the future, just let me know in the comments down below. To begin, let's just do a basic warm-up for Goku with a collection of series I like to call what if analog horrors. Essentially, this takes a pre-existing series that isn't exactly horror and turns it into internet horror. Even Dragon Ball has its own version of this called The Others, but we'll be talking about that a little bit later down the line. Of these, I think the two most well known at this point are the Godzilla analog horror called Man in the Suit and the Batman analog horror called The Bat. While there are definitely versions of Batman and Godzilla who can actually beat Goku, unfortunately, to fit in the horror genre and give them a unique twist, neither of these versions are actually very strong. Firstly, the man in the suit isn't actually a real Godzilla, but a weird mutated version of the actor who played Godzilla, meaning instead of a city-sized monster, he's only slightly larger than a normal guy. Still, he has some pretty unique hacks abilities, as he seems to be constantly evolving and mutating, even being able to infect other people and turn them into their own tiny Godzilla franchise monsters. The Bat is more straightforward, essentially just being classic Batman if he was insane and terrorized Gotham City instead of actually helping it. It's implied he amps himself with a bunch of drugs to make himself stronger, but all he's really done is beat up and traumatize random criminals. Suffice to say, neither of these guys are very strong, and unfortunately, both of them would not even pose a threat to Goku from Chapter 1 of Dragon Ball, so let's just move on. Another subgenre of analog horror that doesn't do much better are the animatronic horror series, most of them which are inspired by Five Nights at Freddy's. You've got Harmony and Horror, The Walton Files, and FNAF VHS, just to name a few. Just like the previous set of analog horror series, there's not much these characters can really do to threaten any version of Goku. While being a large haunted animatronic suit allows you to be threatening to a normal person, again, Goku is just obviously so far beyond that it doesn't really make a difference either way. The best you can argue for is that many of these series involve supernatural ghosts and spirits possessing these suits, but even then, through Ki, Goku can interact with spirits. So actually, it's very likely Goku would be able to put a lot of these spirits to rest, allowing them to be reborn again like he did for Kid Buu. In other words, Goku would fast-track these horror stories to a happy ending. So is this whole video just going to be me saying Goku wins? No. For example of a scenario that I think is essentially unwinnable for Goku, we can look to an analog horror series like the Tangji virus. In this story, a parasite that evolves in a random water source in a small town essentially takes over people's bodies and eventually takes over the world by spreading infected water across the planet. And honestly, what is Goku supposed to do here? Well, I think Goku would be too powerful to be infected by the virus, as Saiyans are completely immune to a virus that can wipe out all of humanity. I don't think any amount of strength will allow him to eradicate or delete a virus out of other people's bodies. The best I can think of is that he could hypothetically sense the ki of infected people and stop the virus before it spreads by blowing them all up, but that assumes he's able to figure out what's happening in time. While Goku doesn't necessarily lose in this scenario, I think it's almost impossible for him to win. And this really goes for any virus or infection-based analog horror. But is there any analog horror entity who can straight up give any version of Goku a challenge in a straight up fight? Or are technical wins only possible for internet horror? Well, the group of series that I think has the best shot at doing so are cosmic horror series. As the name implies, this involves supernatural scenarios well beyond just the Earth and sometimes beyond our very understanding. The first series that comes to mind is the Mandela Catalog. In this series, the world is being invaded by beings known as alternates, which are warped and twisted replacements of real people whose main objective is to cause someone to delete themselves in real life. They seem to be controlled or led by an entity calling himself Gabriel, who seemingly replaced the biblical angel and literally stopped the events of the Bible from happening. This tells us that seemingly powerful non-human entities can also be given an alternate as long as they are intelligent. If that's true, then everyone might be screwed, because what if Goku got an alternate, essentially having Goku Black happen all over again? I mentioned before but this is essentially the plot of the Dragon Ball analog horror series known as The Others. I don't want to spoil it, but if you want to see how Goku does in a scenario like this, please make sure to check it out. Now, we get to 3 of my favorite analog horror series, all of which might arguably be some of the strongest, at least of the ones I know about: Local 58, Gemini Home Entertainment, and the Monument Mythos. Local 58 at first doesn't seem very powerful, mostly being made up of creepy, disconnected broadcasts and imply that there are some monsters or aliens on the planet who have feats of smashing cars apart. Pretty neat, but again, they struggle against Chapter 1 Kid Goku. However, that can't be said for the main entity of the verse, which is literally the moon, which seemingly has turned into an evil entity capable of driving anyone who sees it insane. Based off the change compared to our moon, this unknown entity at the bare minimum is multi-continental in power, though it's likely just is the moon, so it's probably moon level. Goku likely isn't powerful enough to destroy this thing outright until around the 22nd Budokai, and while he could use the power pole to jump up to it and throw hands, looking at it would probably make him lose his mind as well. So if it's an early enough version of Goku, he does indeed lose in this scenario, but let's push things further. Next, we have Gemini Home Entertainment, which in a way is just Local 58 on an even larger scale. Once again, it involves an evil cosmic body slowly taking over the planet, but this time, instead of a moon, it's an entire planet known as the Iris. While its own size is unclear, what we do see is that it's able to drastically mutate and warp the geography of other planets, like Neptune. In fact, it seemed to turn Neptune into a death beam that shot light across the entire solar system in a couple seconds, arguably making it massively faster than light, given that it usually takes light 4 hours to reach Neptune from the sun. This is consistent with the fact that the Iris likely came from another solar system. Still, this means that Goku is up against a mutating planet-sized eye that can move at massively faster than light speeds. Unironically, Goku might be in trouble all the way through OG Dragon Ball, and the Iris would simply be too fast for him even if he could tag it with a Kamehameha. Their attack potency should also be pretty close, given that the hacks of the Iris can affect large planets. Still, I think by the time of the Saiyan Saga, Goku's attack potency and speed are high enough that one good Kamehameha could blow the Iris away. I bet you didn't think analog horror could be that strong, but wait, we still have one more series to talk about. The Monument Mythos. It is honestly a complete coincidence that my personal favorite analog horror series just so happens to be one of the most powerful ones I know. The Monument Mythos is full of a lot of satire, but genuinely does have some pretty scary moments, and also some of the craziest power scaling feats I've seen from a series that isn't a video game, a comic, or an anime. Now, summarizing the story would be impossible, but I genuinely recommend checking it out. There are numerous powerful entities within the Monument Mythos, like the D-Day Knight, the Last Son of Alcatraz, or the Air Force One Angel, who all have anywhere from multi-city block all the way to beyond planetary level implications. However, all of them are absolute fodder compared to the ultimate cosmic god of the verse, known as the Horned Serpent. Now, this entity essentially causes everything to happen in the story, and every other powerful character is usually just a tiny fraction of its power. I should note that the Horned Serpent is literally an alternate version of George Washington. I promise it makes sense when you watch the series, and I don't have enough time to get into it right now. Anyways, the first thing we see the Horned Serpent do is destroy the Earth when it's freed, its sheer size alone being brown dwarf level in power, making him already solo OG Dragon Ball just by existing, and probably giving Saiyan Saga Goku a hard time. However, this turns out to just be an avatar of the true serpent, as the creator of the series has told us that the serpent is actually a higher dimensional entity that we only perceive in the third dimension because that's all what humans can comprehend. We learned that another aspect of the horned serpent is a place called Wonderland, an internal infinite structure in which both time is irrelevant and doesn't exist. If that wasn't enough, after being reborn, the horned serpent caused something known as the Great Division, which created and affected multiple different universes. We are told that while not every world was affected by the division, many were. The horned serpent is also stronger than characters like Richard Nixon, who literally turned his entire universe into a fictional story. This makes the horned serpent a fourth or fifth dimensional being, capable of at least low multiversal power. This would make him strong enough to rival Goku as he is currently in Dragon Ball Super, as both of them are to some degree into that low multiversal tier. I'd argue that the horned serpent might actually win due to having way more hacks abilities and just through the fact that he's far more esoteric in nature and physiology compared to Goku, who's just a strong punch and kick guy. So can Goku survive Analog Horror? Almost. 99% of them lose to Saiyan Saga Goku or before. However, as we've seen, the Monument Mythos is absolutely no joke. I want to quickly thank all the creators who made these series. This video would not be possible without your hard work. I also wanted to thank my members who joined the channel for $2 and got to see this video early. Your support means so much. But that's going to be all from me. See ya.